Good morning, Oakland, California. How are you doing? Welcome back to another lovely episode of Unleashing the Future of Work Guide Live B2B Jam Session with your friend and lovely host, Tim Salau, CEO of Guide, Mr. Future of Work. Super excited to have you all here. And please, 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 if you are having a great Thursday, let us know in the comments below. Show us some love this lovely Thursday morning. If you're waking up on the good side of the bed, say that you're waking up on the good side of the bed because I know I am super grateful to be alive, especially with all the protesting going on in honor of Jacob Blake. Thankfully, we're so happy that he's still alive in times that we're all facing the struggle. And if you are currently paying attention to the news right now, please, please show your love and respects. Please, 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 please take care of yourself. Stay safe. And, let's make sure that, we're on the right side of humanity. Right. So much love to Jacob Blake and his family and all that they continue to do in making sure that we focus on human rights and we truly, truly address police brutality. So please, please show your love if you're in Oakland, if you're in Wisconsin, wherever you're at, let us know so we can show you some love in the comments below. And I'm really excited because today, my lovely, 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 lovely guest, he's awesome. I've been following his work for quite some time, and he's going to share a whole bunch of tidbits on what the future of work looks like, how organizational leaders should be thinking about the future of work, and what is the new employee-employer contract that we need to define with talent and employers. It's going to be riveting. And he actually just told me right before we went live that he's actually working on a new book that's going to be focused around all of this. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Steve Cadigan is known in Silicon Valley and abroad as a board member, keynote speaker for multiple organizations, but more importantly, a talent hacker and advisor to the stars, to the best organizations in the world. So from Manchester United Football Club to Square, Airbnb, Salesforce, Cisco, he's worked with them all. He has such a notable background that it's truly an honor to have him on the show and really just hear what he's thinking about in terms of the future of work and how organizations need to rethink their talent strategy and form a new employee-employer contract with their people. With that said, if you're excited or if you already know about Steve, show some love and share this with your network. Let your boss know that we're live right now, that he needs to tune in. Share this with him on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you're at, because we have the lovely Steve Cadigan on the show. With that said, Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, Tim, great to be here, man. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. And I got to say, before we get started, I'd like to riff a little bit on what the world's going through right now, particularly in America, with this tension with race relations and everything. And having been in the human resource world as long as I have, and having seen the evolution that we're facing with so many things right now, it's really making me think that one of the things we should all be trying to improve on right now is the ability to have hard conversations and the ability to talk about tough stuff. Because I worry in this era of tweets and little 140 character communications that we're losing our ability to have a constructive conversation about really hard stuff. And people are more hunkering down, and standing, taking a side and not looking at the truth. Like, we're debating truth today, which is really hard. But, as someone who's spent my career, just like you have, helping other people navigate an increasingly complex world, I really hope we double down on getting better at being able to talk about stuff that's really hard,
Yeah. And I think that's a part of the new employer-employee contract. I think that the leaders who are not making some sort of statement, or the organizations who aren't saying where they stand in all of this, it should be concerning because these are very tough times, especially when really it's all about human rights. Fundamentally, for me, I believe as a leader, and even with the recent news about the attempted killing of Jacob Blake, for me as a leader, I have to make a statement, and I've made sure that I'm making my statement as a part of our organization. But it's tough, I think, I want us to even dive deep on this because this is a perfect segue into having you share a little bit about, your background and how you became a talent hacker and some of the things you've done with a few of the organizations on your list, man.
Yeah, sure, Tim. Love to do that. And, I think I'm a high context individual. And so maybe some context of my background to sort of help inform the audience around how I see the world. So I moved to South Africa before I could learn to talk, probably before the age of 2. My parents wanted to have a really exciting adventure. So I lived in South Africa the first 5 years after we got there. I was there until the age of 7. And the government, apartheid government, kicked us out in 1970, and I moved to the East Coast of the U.S. Went to school there. Dad's a minister. Mom ran a lot of nonprofit daycare centers for low-income families. And so I played a lot of sports, a lot of basketball is kind of my thing. And I got really lucky in my first job out of college in San Francisco to find recruiting. And recruiting was everything I loved about sports, which was helping find the right people for the right teams, and who performs well in certain kinds of environments and who doesn't, and who needs a team structure, who likes to work independently. And over the course of my career I went from fashion to insurance, and then I went to high tech land, semiconductor, and then I got to work in video games and networking at Cisco Systems. And then ultimately my last regular job, I was the first head of HR at LinkedIn. Over that period of time, I had a chance to live and work in Singapore for 2 years, live and work in Canada for a company called PMC Sierra for 4 years. And I think it's helped me see the world from a pretty holistic perspective. Like it's great to be an American, but it's even better, I think, to be in another country and learn how they see your country. When I was in Singapore, for example, SARS broke out. So I dealt with a pandemic with the front row seat because it had broken out right in Hong Kong, just above where we were. And then also we had the Gulf War going on over there. And when I was in Singapore, we were surrounded by Malaysia and Indonesia, not very friendly to the United States. And so, living in a world where you can see the diversity of how people think differently, I think helps me help other people navigate disputes or disagreements, because I've constantly been in this world where I've been in different environments and tried to see it. So for example, when my father and our family was kicked out of South Africa, there were so many protests of people saying, why are you pushing out? Many American clergy were getting kicked out in the late 60s and early 70s. And so I grew up with this, like right from the start of my life, why are the people protesting? And my family was very active in preaching to the Zulu communities outside of where we lived. And so it was really interesting for us, I think, as kids. My brother and sister younger brother and sister were both born in South Africa. Wow. So they like to freak people out and say, I'm an African American. And people are like, what? Like, yeah, I was born in Africa. And so, but I think, that whole experience of my childhood and my professional experience, I found myself, for example, at LinkedIn, I was the only member on the executive team for the 4 years I was there that had lived and worked internationally. Like wow. Everyone has their own lens. So I like to think that's helped me see the world a little differently and maybe be a little more creative in my ability to help other people solve their problems and look at things from a different lens, because I've done that. And I should also say, when I was 16, I had the great opportunity to live in France, working on a farm. Wow. And where I had to learn French, and I was, dumped in. This is pre-end of the Cold War era, so it was rare that there's the little token American in our little French village. Now you can see the world's a lot more open, but back then it was pretty interesting. So that's just a little bit of my personal back, because I think the personal really informs a lot of your professional thinking as well.
It does. No, agree with you 100%. And, you have a very multicultural lens on the world, given that you worked with a variety of different organizations outside and inside and on, different soil. I want to ask you, the world is becoming only more multicultural. Organizations have to support, a multicultural base of employees, but more importantly, customers. How should organizations be thinking about their talent strategy as the world becomes more multicultural and things are so dynamic now?
Yeah, I think, I'm a big believer in holistic change, and Malcolm Gladwell is sort of my, thought, idol when it comes to, how do we change and how do we do things differently? And I think when I look at the opportunity for more multicultural, organizations and teams, I think COVID has actually been a great ignition. I mean, if we're looking for silver lining in some really difficult times for a lot of us, it's forcing us to be able to get comfortable with, working with people from different places in a different way and through different mediums. And I think that will translate well to, we have to be open to more talent in different locations, because geography doesn't matter as much. And we're proving right now that we can create value as individuals with people in different places, because everyone's in a different place. Very few organizations are together in one spot right now. And that coordination, the muscle we're going to build, I'm hopeful, is going to result in greater openness to doing this. And I also believe that, if we're going to realize a more, diverse outcome, which I believe is the ultimate, objective. If you want to be more profitable, you've got to have an organization that represents the landscape of the world. And so the more that you represent that, the more you understand it, the more you can sell to it, the more profitable you're going to be. And I think I'm tired of the diversity and inclusion arguments that are based on guilt versus based on it's the right thing to do and we're going to make more money. So like that, those are the conversations. And I also am not excited about organizations that say, well, there's our head of multicultural over there. And because what you do is you take away the ownership for the whole leadership team, the whole employee base. No, we all got to own this, not that person, And so, they're the person who's in charge of diversity. No, we're all in charge of diversity. They're going to help show us some insightful ways that we can do this. So I think, it's not like we're moving from politically correct to necessary for vital businesses to grow. And, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I think social media on the downside has allowed us to find more ways that we're different and we double down on that versus amplifying all the ways that we're alike. And that's what I want social media to do for us. But at the same time, social media is outing the bad actors in this, in the world. And that's a good thing. This is why I love what COVID's done. We have the greatest leadership test in the history of the earth happening before our eyes every day. When times are tough, that's when we know which leaders and which organizations, which cultures are going to stand up or not stand up, right? So take two great examples, businesses that really took it, Airbnb and Bird in the scooter industry. And I don't know if anyone saw the article about how Bird handled their staff reduction, but horrible. Apparently it was referred to by some people who were let go as a Black Mirror episode.
Wow.
and one of those case studies for business school, the wrong way, to do it. And it was just very highly impersonal, not leadership, not stepping up and owning it, and just a miserable outcome. Whereas you have Airbnb creating among the people they let go more loyalty to Airbnb than existed before by how much they went the extra mile and turned that whole company into an outplacement firm. That's what Airbnb did. We're going to try to help. And it was just grieving. I mean, I'm sure your feed was just like mine, just full of people who, not just who left, but people who are still there going, man, we're going to do everything we can to find work for our great former colleagues, And so, that I think that transparency to how people are handling some of these tough issues, I think is opening people's eyes to, well, I want to spend my time with the organization that's doing this the right way. And we're getting lots of good intel right now for us to decide who's deserving of our talents,
No, it's so powerful you say that because, have shared the Airbnb example with a lot of different friends and colleagues in the industry. And it's amazing what they did. And even just how they pivoted the business to still support their host and allow them to do online experiences. But in that, in what you mentioned of, they actually created more loyalty with the people that were leaving than existed in the past because they offered them computers because it's hard to find jobs if you don't have a computer to be able to search for opportunities and network and things of that nature. They created a talent marketplace. Like all of these different things are really actually very monumental things for you to do with people who you have to transition out due to, because the market changes, right? Like Airbnb didn't see this coming. And I think it's I love what you said, Steve, about it's actually a leadership opportunity for a lot of different organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And listen, Tim, I mean, I've heard you talk about this. I've heard your guests talk about this. We have the most fluid world of work right now than we've ever seen before, as measured by how short people are staying in organizations. And, you and I were talking a little bit before the show around this, which is, many companies still reward and motivate their teams based on how long they can keep their staff. Like retention is a really big deal. And what I'm trying to help organizations see today is, I asked them, what's your biggest problem? Oh, we can't hire really great people and we can't keep the really great people. And I said, so they're not staying as long? They said, that's right. I say, do you see that changing in the next 20 years? No, we don't. In fact, most companies around the world that I talk to say, we see a continued decline of how long people are going to stay. And I said, so maybe we should think of a different model. Maybe that in a more fluid world, we care about people not just when they're working for us. Maybe we need to care for them for their whole career versus just the job time. And there's still a lot of companies, I call it, that have the Tony Soprano school of HR, where if you quit, you're dead to me. It doesn't work today. It doesn't work today, right? And
Yeah.
so because that person's got a phone in their pocket, which goes right to Glassdoor, which can talk about all the good and the bad. And you could also be missing a boomerang opportunity. You could be missing someone who goes to a company that wants to do a partnership with you. So we've got to see the world of talent as organizations much more than just when someone's with us. Because that's what I'm referring to in my upcoming book. Sort of, that's just a broken model. Let's have a more honest conversation. You're going to leave here at some point, and I want this to be the best experience of your career. What can we do to set you up for your next adventure? Because I want to be with you your whole career, not just when you're here. And that's a bigger, better commitment than promising job security, which is such a hollow promise today. I mean, who believes their company's never going to let them go or have a hard time or have some unicorn come after them, right?
Yeah. And also, I think it's a brand opportunity too for the organizations that get it right. You can build brand loyalty that way, and it's very. I love your philosophy, Stephen. I can't wait to read your book because this is how organizations should be designed. It should be, how do you grow your people, not how do you retain them for life, quote unquote, right? Because that's not really the world we're living in anymore.
Yeah. Oh, Tim, you're giving me goosebumps because you are reading my book by what you're saying. So one of the chapters in my book is called From Job Security to Career Security, and in that I say, like, listen, you can't promise you're not going to have to let someone go, but what you can promise them is you're going to make them more vital for tomorrow, and that's all about investing in them while they're with you. And say, my promise is not that you won't get fired. My promise is that you're going to be better and more safe for an uncertain future than anywhere else you could work. Like, that's got to be our commitment. Not a promise of job security, but a promise of knowledge and employability, a promise of growth. And that traditionally among my HR peers, and I got to admit, I've said these words have come out of my mouth. Like, why do I want to educate you and make you more able to leave my company? Why would I do that? And now you don't have a choice now. Like, you have to do that. Because if I'm looking at what employer I want to go work for, it's one that's going to make me better for an uncertain future, because that's the only thing that we both know. Like, the employers and employees today have this awkward situation where both parties don't know what skills they need to have a safer future. We don't know. Yeah. And so, what I do think is that, and I'm asked this all the time, whether it's on radio, television, whatever, like, hey, Steve, what are the most important skills for the future? And I say, well, I can tell you what they are today, but I promise you next year, the answer is different. So I could send you on an endless chase of trying to get the skill that's going to make you relevant. But I think the bigger skill is the ability to learn the new skills. I call it learning agility, your learning velocity. That's what we need to be working on. That's what our schools need to be working on, is not just building people to get a job, but building people to continually be able to learn. And that will take care of the job security issue. You follow me?
Yeah, 100%. I want to show love to the amazing Joy Ofodu, who was on a past episode as one of our lovely guests. She says the greatest leadership test in the history of the earth. She agrees with you 100%, Steve. And there's something you mentioned here, because do you believe now that every organization has gone remote overnight, pretty much, right? And we're still kind of all struggling through COVID-19. Do you think the employee-employee relationship continues to be fractured?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I don't know if you saw, the Canadian government talked about this. The Canadian government says, we're not all working from home. We're at home during a crisis trying to get work done. And so I don't know about you, but I was on a webinar yesterday and I got a text feed from my son. Can you make me breakfast? How long are you going to be on the call? Hey, Dad, there's a signature at the front door. Like, you need to sign for. Like, whoa. Like, my school or my home is now a school and an office. And so, and Tim, I don't believe anyone that says it's going to be like this forever. Nobody knows. And we don't know. Like, I was joking I had this great conference in Ohio. I was pre-recording this talk, and I was joking with them, say, in HR, one of the biggest, challenging things that we have to face sometimes is the sexual harassment investigation. Like, someone makes a claim, we go to investigate. So I was telling the audience, hey, the good news is those complaints have come way down. I said, but we all know what's going to happen. One of our employees is going to file a claim of harassment, a hostile work environment against their teenage child. Like, that's like, that's the work environment. Like, and we don't know. And listen, you're like me. I think we're like Extroverts Incorporated. This is torture for us. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be around people. I want to be hugging people. I
Yeah.
want to be like feeling the energy. That makes me feel alive. Like looking at this camera right now is not making me have that same sense of love.
It's true.
But so I don't know how it's going to play out. But I do think, I mean, for sure, the doubters of work-life balance and working from home, the argument's over. Like I would say, the merger is complete. Work life is now complete. Like the merger has been completed, and now so here we are. So, but what does that mean? And I think friction is going to move from different places to, I always used to say the worst boss is the boss that's single and has no children and has done your job before. So then, like, you're in trouble. So now, like, if I've got 3 kids in my house right now, my biggest challenge is battling for Wi-Fi bandwidth because they've got Zoom classes and things they have to do, or when they're not, they're gaming. And so I'm monitoring my, the quality of my upload download. But so we're still at the early phases of trying to figure out how this plays out. And if you've got a boss that doesn't understand, you've got to manage your kids. I got to make lunches. I got real needs. And the younger the kids, the more homeschooling is problematic. We still haven't figured out what that means for everybody. And so there's different pain points. I think the shared recognition of our team humanity is going to be a good thing. Like, I'm really going to have to understand the personal lives of my employees far more than before. And that hopefully is going to be a good thing in terms of our ability to build trust. Like, this is why I have a problem with Zoom and a problem with technology sometimes, because it's our seduction with technology is taking us away from the fact that it's hard to build trust through a screen.
It is.
As it is in person. And we're going to have to learn how to do that better. And I think hopefully this experience is going to force some technology, innovation, that we can find ways of building better trust when we're not in the same room. It's just different.
Until we can teleport, right?
Right. Well, you joke about that, Tim. I was approached by a company saying, we can hologram you so you can speak at a conference in China. You don't have to fly to China. I go, really? Tell me more. Like, this could be really interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting. And I want to ask you, because you worked with organizations like LinkedIn, and one of the things Jeff Weiner, the former CEO of LinkedIn, now chairman, he's a huge advocate around compassionate leadership, right? And really being able to empathize with your employees, but also your customers, and how compassion is really the mainstay of leadership. And actually, that's a philosophy I follow. How important do you think it is for leaders to show compassion in times like this? And what's your philosophy on how leaders should lead in a remote first world?
Yeah, so 100% agree. Obviously, I mean, Jeff is like an unbelievably talented leader, and that was always his philosophy. Never changed. And I was the recipient of that from him, and I really can't thank him enough for that. But listen, as we were talking before, everyone's life has changed now, and I think what I think is a good thing is the first point of contact that we have, employer, manager, employer, leader, needs to be, how are you doing? How are you doing? That doesn't mean, are you behind on your work or are you on top of your work? It means, no, how are you doing? How are your parents doing? Are you feeling safe? Is there something I could do for you? So I'm going to need to make that connection. Now, as a high context person, I always have to make that connection before I deal with anyone anyway. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me, but it's an unnatural for a lot of folks who are more task-oriented, separating personal and work. We can't do that now. And so I think having more greater empathy and compassion and appreciation for other people's circumstances, it's just eminently going to make it easier to solve problems and get through difficult things. If I can see the world through someone else's shoes and pair of eyes, then I think I can understand their point of view better. I mean, I will tell you, one of the greatest skills that people don't appreciate, someone like Jeff Weiner has, and having sat in the office next to his for almost 4 years, is that if there was ever disharmony in the organization, Jeff would get the people that were having a difference and they would sit with them and would say, we are not leaving this room until we figure out why there's a disconnect here. And so sometimes he'd invite me in for that, or sometimes maybe I was on the receiving end. I had a disagreement with somebody, and he was so phenomenal around appreciating that we're an organization is a collection of people, and we all have different values. We all have different educational experiences. We've all come from different backgrounds. And the more, it really is kind of crazy that we can even get along as well as we do when you think about how diverse the world can be. But Jeff's appreciation very quickly was, I mean, he loves product and he's a product marketing guy. And I remember sitting with him, and he was the first time CEO, right? When I joined the company, I was his first hire on his executive team. And I remember going to his office one day, he says, "Gosh, all I do is deal with people issues." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what a CEO does, man." And he's like, and he really took it on, like, super bright guy. And within a few weeks, I mean, he's like, "Yeah, got it. I gotta figure this out." And I'll give you a great story about Jeff, but it's just a great leadership story around what you're talking about relative to compassion. You spent some time at LinkedIn. You know that there's a regular survey cadence of employees, like, are you getting what you need? Or you feel inspired by your boss? And, are you clear on the vision, mission, values? A lot of the Gallup kind of questions around employee engagement. Well, for 1 year, we got the survey results, and Jeff had the lowest score on the executive team for do you feel motivated by your leader? Now, it wasn't a bad score, like on a 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. He was like a 4.2, but he was the lowest in the room, and it just killed him. So on his board in front of his desk, he wrote the number one goal every day: I'm going to inspire my people. So we do the survey 6 months later. Jeff's still low. And so he pulls me in his office, like, "Steve, like, I'm really beside myself here. Like, I pride myself on doing that. Why do you think it's so low?" And so I said, and it was a great moment for me to be able to help him. I said, "Jeff, when you have someone on the team come to you, where do you meet them?" He goes, "Right here in the office." I said, "Is it usually about something good or something broken?" He goes, "Something," and all of a sudden the light went off. I go, "Right. So when people come into your office, what do you think their comfort level is? Something's broken. I got to go to the principal's office. Uh-oh." And so he, in a second, I didn't even need to finish the sentence. Every one-on-one meeting he started to have, walking around the park, walking around the office complex. So one-on-one walking meetings. Next survey, boom, he's the top of the heap. He just changed the dynamic. Yeah, it's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really, really powerful. And I think and it's so sad, right? Because leaders can't do that anymore. So now you have to kind of find a different way to give that presence, that allyship in your organization. Do you have any suggestions on how leaders or people who are watching right now, or people leaders can do that in a remote first world?
Yeah, so taking the chapter out of the time in my life, for 4 years, I worked at Cisco working on acquisition integration. Arguably, prior to things like COVID, one of the most complicated and challenging, emotion-fraught experiences you can have as an individual is if your company gets bought. Are they going to let me go? Do I have a new boss? Are they going to change my compensation or my health plan? Or, like, everything's up in the air. And what we found was, in difficult times, when we would make a mistake, it was an opportunity for the employees to see how we're going to handle that. And so what I think is really great right now is there's lots of chances for things to go sideways during COVID, but also lots of chances for you to build trust and see what people are made of. And so I think now is a chance for leaders to be able to, I think you need to be much more intentional about reaching out to people. Like, if you had a biweekly meeting with a member, you should do that weekly. Just raise the cadence, raise the frequency, do personal check-ins when you deal with people, but also recognize, like, I'm here to, as your leader, to clear the path for you so that you can be as productive as you can be. What advice do you have for me? And just invite the questions. I'll give you another experience I had from my career that was really informative. I went from a mostly Western HR trained background, and I moved to be the head of HR for Cisco Asia for 2 years. And I had always prided myself on reading body language as like one of my sixth senses, if you will. Like, I can read if someone's feeling tense or has got a question, not saying anything. Well, good luck taking that to Asia, where the body language is so different, And I almost laugh because COVID, think about talking to someone on a work issue with a mask on. You cannot read any facial expression at all. Are they concerned? Are they confused? Do they have a question? Do they disagree? Yeah. So we've got to build this new skill of being more assertive, checking in and asking for input. And that's the skill I had to build in China. Was, don't assume because they look like they get it that they get it. It's like, I would have to ask, does that make sense? Do you have a different view on? And in Asia, a lot of the countries, it's impolite or disrespectful to disagree with your leader. So I would have to artfully come up with a way for them to disagree that wasn't them disagreeing. If you were me, would you approach it differently? Things like that. And I think those are good skills for leaders to think about today is that what worked yesterday is going to be different today. And one of my friends said to me the other day, and I thought it was just the greatest quote. He's like, it was around the new normal. So what's the new normal? He goes, the new normal is never normal. And I go, whoa, that's it right there. Which is pressure on us as leaders to sort of continually monitor our environment and check in with people, because things are not going to be the same. Don't play for that. Play for appreciating things are going to be different. And that means higher touch, more communication, and greater flow of information, because things are just, unpredictable increasingly, right?
Yeah. And, it's so funny because you just touched on a lot of the new skills that leaders are going to have to pick up now that we're all communicating through a screen. And, the fact that the empathy building, the compassion, these are all things that should have been there in your leadership toolkit prior to COVID-19. But now you're really going to have to pull it out and make sure it's a mainstay in terms of how you people lead and even just how you inspire people.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the things, tying a couple of the last points that you made, Tim, together, one of the things that I think is a truth around us as human beings, we are more comfortable talking about hard stuff in informal environments. So Jeff Weiner, for example, in the office setting, it's a little bit tense already because we're in an office. If I'm walking with you, I'm looking ahead, I'm not having to look you in the eyes. It's very informal. My guard is down.
Yeah.
I'm maybe more likely to share something with you.
Yeah.
So we need to find ways of creating those informal opportunities for us to lower our guard a little bit, lower our barriers, and have real authentic exchanges. So one company, Mobile Iron, which is over here in Mountain View, California, one of my former colleagues from LinkedIn was telling me a great story. They experimented with a company chess tournament during COVID. And, the employee's like, hey, we need to do something, a substitute for the coffee room, break room, foosball, ping pong, fill in the blank, cool thing that employees can do. And so they started this chess tournament, and my friend was telling me, it wasn't really that, I don't love chess. Anyway, they got 90% engagement. In the chat box of the chess tournament, they would see people who'd never met having discussions about product and about company strategy. And I think these are really exciting things that are happening, that we're discovering new ways of people informally connecting. And those are the things that we're missing not being together, is those what they're referred to as informal collisions of innovation opportunities, right? How do you do that? Because if I have to set up a meeting with you, it's like, okay, I know it's a setup meeting and there's some formality around it. How do we create that informal reality? And there's a lot of people playing around with Zoom-like features where there's a breakout here and there's a different thing here that I think are really going to be good experiments for us, that hopefully are going to help us as leaders be able to create those informal moments where people lower their guard and they say really what's on their mind,
And they're more transparent and authentic. Would love to ask, as we cap off the conversation, what's in your remote work tool stack? What technologies are you using during these times as a speaker and also as a talent advisor with some of the biggest organizations in the world?
So tiny little investments that I've made are, obviously I had to get some higher quality speakers. I've got the microphone like you've got around the corner here, but I invested in a simple thing. I was having a problem with lighting. Okay. And so I bought a whole bunch of light stands. Well, going back and forth as I do between San Diego and the Bay Area a lot, I can't bring those light stands with me all the time. So I invested in a Logitech camera that I'm using now, which there's a window on this side of me over here. There's a window here and it's sunny out there. There's no window on this side, but the light is even thanks to the camera. So that I can't tell you how many webinars I've seen where it's like the dark face on one side, like what's going on? And you're looking at the wrong place. And, I think for me, the harder pivot, honestly, Tim, has just been like, I want to look at you, but you're down here. And if I look at you, I'm not looking at the audience. So I got to look at the camera. I want to look at you because I want the body language and all that. So that's been the harder transition for me, is getting used to that. And then things like this morning, like, okay, what time is my first meeting? Do I have to shower for that one? Do I have to get dressed? Do I have to wear a shirt?
Or is it a phone call, right?
Yeah. And listen, this is someone told me, like, hey, don't do all webinars all day. It's just people don't want to be showing themselves, like, do the phone. And I was talking to someone and that's their rhythm. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to steal that. I like that. It's like, vary it up, give people that chance to look a little bit whacked out and not have to be all cleaned up,
Yeah. It's funny. Set up the Zoom call, but make it all audio, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Make it all
It's a
audio.
simple thing. It's a simple thing. But again, back to what we were just talking about, I'm going to probably feel more comfortable if I'm sitting in my jammies or my ratty sweats and, not having to, look nice and clean up like my desk behind me because I'm on a video, not worried about that,
Yeah.
if we do that. And I think we're going to have to find a good balance there somehow, we're
No,
still learning, we're still learning.
it's true. It's true. Love that. Love that. Man, Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man.
Oh
You
man,
shared
so
all
great.
kinds of great tips, and we're excited about the new book, man. Where can our people connect with you and follow more of your movement and all the things that you're putting out there into the world, man?
Yeah, awesome. So stevecadigan.com is the place. I've got a website where it's sort of a clearinghouse, got a lot of my videos, a lot of my talks, a lot of my thoughts. I just launched, and I'm not sharing it too broadly yet, but it's blowing up. I just launched a TikTok channel, if you will, and I'm not sure how I feel about the breaches of security and the threats of that yet. So until that gets sorted, I'm hoping that someone buys them, and we can get through some of those security risks. But that's a place where I'm able to sort of give little nuggets. And if you would want to check out some of my thoughts on there, I've done a whole series on interviewing, and next week I'm going to do a whole series on salary negotiations. But trying to help people navigate this really uncertain future of work. But yeah, Tim, it's been a pleasure to chat with you, and I hope we get a chance to do this again when the book really comes out.
Oh, excited about the book, man. Steve, thank you so much. We definitely need to have you on for a future episode. Once again, and what's your powerful takeaway for our community on how they can survive and thrive in the future of work, man?
Right now, you look at work as a marathon. Look at work as your ability to grow and learn is your job security. Not having a job, it's being able to have a job. So just know the greatest investment you can make is in yourself, and put that pressure on yourself to make sure you find people and organizations that are making you better and constantly raising your game. And then I think you're going to feel a lot safer.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate you being on the show, man.
Thank you so much, Tim. Yeah, loved it.
Brother. Man, that was the awesome Steve Cadigan on the show with us today. If you enjoy Steve, make sure you follow him and his movement at stevecadigan.com, and make sure you sign up for his newsletter because he's going to be sharing more information about the book soon that is going to probably come out maybe early 2021. But what a time to really redefine what the employee-employer contract is. And once again, if you are reeling right now, given what's going on with the state of the world in terms of Jacob Blake, we are with you. Keep strong, stay strong, and know that better days are absolutely coming. With that said, if you want to learn more about Guide App, check out guideapp.co. Sign up for our early access beta. We continue to chug along and lead our movement. So if you ever want to learn more about how to get access to our early beta, sign up and we will bump you up on the wait list if you invite a friend. With that said, thank you so much for joining us this lovely morning. If you have any questions on how you can help us or how you can sponsor, or if you have any thoughts on a guest for a future episode of the Guide Live B2B Jam session, reach out to me or check out utfow.com, where you can actually sign up to be a potential guest or refer someone that you think would be an amazing guest on our show. With that said, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Oakland, stand up if you are in the building. Much love to you. Please, please, please have a lovely Thursday. And as always, peace, love, and abundance.